New releases tell us that the FBI may have had an informant embedded with the Oath Keepers. And that begs the question, why did the Capitol riots take place? Why did the protests occur? Why was it allowed to get that bad if the FBI was right there the entire time? Now, the story starts with a very interesting publication from the New York Times. The publication is not what is as interesting as the fact that it was published. The details in the story are certainly interesting, but the question is, how did the details end up in the hands of the New York Times? Prosecutors are very upset about this. They don't want the public to know, holy crap, there may have been an FBI informant with the Oath Keepers. So they filed a motion under seal, which evidently has been made public. It was accidentally filed on the public docket. And Kyle Cheney got a handle on that, where the government prosecutors are asking the judge to go and skewer the defense lawyers to say, why did they leak this? Prosecutors blame the defense for leaking the story to the New York Times. So now that we know how all these pieces fit together, let's see what the New York Times actually talked about when they published this story. Coming from the New York Times, they published on November 8th that the Oath Keepers have an informant that's likely to testify as a defense witness. The defendants have an individual who may have been an FBI informant who may come to testify on behalf of the defense. Apparently, a man who served as number 2 to Stuart Rhodes, who is the leader of the Oath Keepers, is said to have secretly reported to the FBI in the months leading up to the January 6th attack. That's weird. Why did the FBI then allow this to happen? And why are the Oath Keepers now being charged with seditious conspiracy for trying to insurrect America if the FBI could have stopped the whole thing from happening on day one? Very curious. They write, Washington. An FBI informant who was embedded for months in the inner circle of Stuart Rhodes, the leader of the Oath Keepers militia, is likely to testify as a defense witness at the conspiracy trial of Mr. Rhodes in connection with the attack at the Capitol. Now, again, this is not about the witness per se or about his testimony. It's about, well, the fact that this happened, right, that he was there, right? The trial is sort of at the closing juncture right now. The trial is wrapping up. They are talking about jury selection and all of that. We're not necessarily talking about the trial. We're talking about the fact that this guy was an informant who was embedded with the Oath Keepers and that the prosecutors are pissed that this got publicly released. They are pissed less about the fact that's in this article than about the fact that it was published in the first place, which we'll get to. Now, this is also important, obviously, but I think that the prosecutorial response sort of confirms the accuracy of this article. We'll get there. Says, the informant, who was Stuart Rhodes' number 2, allegedly is named Greg McWhirter, served as the Oath Keepers vice president, but was secretly reporting to the FBI about the group's activities in the weeks and months leading up to the Capitol attack, according to 2 people familiar with the matter. 2 people to the New York Times. Now, despite their relationship with Mr. McWhirter, federal prosecutors decided not to call him as a government witness at the trial of Mr. Rhodes and his 4 co-defendants. That's now unfolding in federal court. The prosecution rested its case last week, did not call other key cooperating witnesses, including 3 members of the Oath Keepers who already pled guilty to the charges, which is interesting, right? In a criminal case, if your co-defendants plead guilty, one of the things the government loves to do is to get a co-defendant, like let's say 4 people go in and rob the bank. You've got a getaway driver and 3 guys who run in, they do the robbing. Well, what they like to do is they like to say, well, there's a conspiracy here. We'll give the first 3 a deal, provided that you turn around and testify against the 4th guy, who was really the main conspirator, the ringleader of the group, to use like a Hollywood analogy. But these guys pled guilty and they're not testifying against the other people. Why is that? McWhirter is 40. He's a former sheriff's deputy from Montana. He was expected to appear at the trial. Listen to this. Expected to appear at the trial as a witness on Tuesday for Mr. Stuart Rhodes, a very unusual move that suggests that Mr. Rhodes' lawyers believe he has information that could help their case, right? The defense is calling a government informant to testify on their behalf, and the U.S. government didn't call this person. But during an impromptu hearing on Tuesday, the lawyers, said that McWhirter had been taken off a plane while traveling to Washington when he was traveling there to testify after he suffered a heart attack. Oh, man. You're kidding me. Man, he's getting on a plane to literally go and testify on Tuesday morning. Heart attack. On the way. Off the plane. Taken off the plane while he was getting there. Heart attack. Man, crazy. Weird coincidence, you know? Oh, I wonder how that happened. Yeah. Because of his medical condition, the lawyer said Mr. McWhirter was unable to appear on the witness stand on Tuesday. Oh, man, bummer. When the defense lawyers still want him to testify, it remained unclear and whether he might be able to do so. As court came to a close on Tuesday, the judge who's overseeing the trial said it might be possible for Mr. McWhirter to testify remotely by video feed. And this guy, McWhirter, is the second known FBI confidential source who was in a position to provide information to the feds about the Oath Keepers before the January 6th event took place. This raises questions, obviously, about why investigators did not know more about the attack on the Capitol. Maybe because there wasn't going to be an attack on the Capitol. Maybe because they knew there was going to be an attack on the Capitol because it was their attack on the Capitol. Near the start of the Rhodes trial, Abdullah Rashid, a former Oath Keeper from West Virginia, told the jury he became alarmed by the violent language that Rhodes used. Said, the more I listened to the call, the more it sounded like we're going to war. FBI also had confidential sources in Kansas City, the Proud Boys chapter. That person was a low-level member of the Proud Boys. As part of his cooperation with the government, McWhirter, the informant for the Oath Keepers, told the FBI about a plot by the Oath Keepers to ambush somebody known as Antifa. In court on Monday, outside the presence of the jury, prosecutors at Rhodes' trial described what appeared to be a similar plot, saying that the FBI got information about the investigation that the Oath Keepers were plotting in 2020 to do certain things. McWhirter once ran the Montana Tactical Training Unit. Last year, he told the Daily Beast that he was selling his business and going other places. This is Mr. Meggs, apparently. Don't know who that is. Other people were charged in the case. Mr. Rhodes took the stand on Monday. He told the jury that even though Mr. Meggs, Watkins, and others entered the Capitol, he never gave them any orders to do so. It was only a quick reaction force that was there to, attend if things went wrong, but never to go into the Capitol. And so that story is there. Now, very curious, okay? McWhirter, evidently an informant, somebody who was working with the FBI, but not close enough for the FBI to stop this from happening, or maybe they wanted it to happen, or maybe they're just creating this whole thing out of thin air. Now, that is what the New York Times published, and I forgot to share with you that came out on November 8th. All right, so take a look at the date here. November 8th is when this got published. And so, yeah, the information in here is shocking. Okay, FBI had informants all over the place, and these are very friendly witnesses who the defense might even call. Wow. But how did they get this information? How did they know about this informant? The DOJ didn't leak it. They certainly wouldn't want this out. So evidently it came from the government or came from the defense. Now, the prosecutors are very unhappy that it leaked at all. Kyle Cheney from Politico, he said, oops. The DOJ appears to have inadvertently posted a sealed filing asking the judge to grill the Oath Keepers' defense lawyers about whether they leaked to the New York Times that one of the key defense witnesses was a confidential human source for the FBI. Prosecutors want answers from the defense, and they filed a motion under seal. Except it wasn't under seal. It was public. And so we have that here. And we can go through it and show you exactly what was filed. When we pull this document up, and we have to get our red pen out so that we can properly mark it up, we're going to see that this was originally filed under seal. A new document in the Oath Keepers trial that was supposed to be filed under seal has now been released by Politico. It's 4 pages, filed on November 8th, right after the New York Times published an article saying that there was an informant embedded with the Oath Keepers who was reporting to the FBI. This is the trial of the United States of America versus Elmer Stewart Rhodes, Kelly Meggs, and others in the Oath Keepers. And it says here that the prosecutors want the judge to take action. They say, hello, Your Honor. We have a potential violation of a protective order. They say, Judge, you already issued an order saying don't talk about this case with the media, and they talked about this case with the media. Therefore, we want you to do something about it. They tell the judge, Your Honor, the United States of America submits this under seal notice to alert the court, you, to recent media reporting that may reflect a violation of a protective order that was issued by you, Judge. On November 8th, the New York Times article reported previously undisclosed details about an FBI investigation with a confidential human source who is a potential witness to the charges currently pending in this court against the Oath Keepers. Take a look at this article from the New York Times published on November 8th that we just read through. According to the article, the information was provided to the New York Times by, quote, and we read this, by two people familiar with the matter. Oh, who could those people be? Prosecutors say, based on the content of the article, it appears that the reporting is based on government records and information that are not publicly available anywhere because they don't want you to know about that. But they were produced to the defense counsel in these cases in camera. Okay, which means that is a off the record, behind the scenes review. This means the judge looks at this like literally in chambers, right? In their back office. They're not doing this in front of everybody to see. So they're saying, Judge, we're going to notify you about this. And it's provided to defense counsel with you overseeing this information. There was a protective order addendum that they can't talk about this special informant because these prosecutors, they don't want you to know how many FBI agents were embedded everywhere. All that was entered on July 8th. The information reported in the New York Times was information about a confidential human source where the disclosure of such information could compromise sensitive law enforcement techniques and witness safety, right? It's that security argument that they always make. The government has no further information as to how the New York Times learned that Greg McWhirter, who has been discussed on the public record solely as a witness, is a confidential human source for the FBI. Don't know how the New York Times could have gotten that. It didn't come from us. Now, we know how leaky the DOJ is when it serves their interests, right? How many leaks have we gotten about Mar-a-Lago? Endless leaks. Nuclear codes, Kim Jong-un, he's talking with the, all the foreign intelligence, whatever. Nonstop. But in this case, it couldn't have possibly come from the DOJ. It must have come from the defense. They don't know how this leaked out. But because both of these details were disclosed to the defense as highly sensitive and covered by a protective order, the government prosecutors now ask this court to inquire of defense counsel, meaning call the defense lawyers in here and ask them whether they or anyone on their defense teams disclosed this information to the New York Times. They are pissed that this came out, and they are pissed that this is also public, this motion. Okay, this whole thing was supposed to be filed under seal, and it wasn't. They made it public, and it's being reported in the news. So they're like, now they're saying, now they are like double stepping in it, right? They just stepped in it because this story leaked, and now they're trying to cover it up. And in their complaint to the judge to try to cover it up, they made it public, which is essentially confirming the accuracy of the story. Pursuant to the court's power to enforce their own protective orders, undersigned government counsel, we're willing to answer the same questions from the court. So call them in here, ask them questions. We'll answer the same questions. The government, the prosecutors, asked the court to take these steps because of the substantial security and health concerns triggered by the premature leak of Mr. McWhirter's status as a confidential human source. Yeah, he's outed, right? And this all happened, and they don't know how it happened. Even prior to this disclosure, McWhirter conveyed to the government tremendous anxiety about his status as a confidential informant. Yeah, they botched it, right? Like this is like what happens in a movie, right? When the identity is leaked and the dude's like hanging at home, he's like, oh crap, I'm going to get taken out by the insurrectionist clan or something, right? It's all fiction, but you get the point. Yesterday, Mr. McWhirter suffered medical distress upon boarding a plane to travel to D.C. to testify for the defense and was thereafter hospitalized. So he had a heart attack when he was coming to testify. Security concerns form part of the basis for the courts granting the government's request to disclose this information. And for all of these reasons, they say, Judge, We ask you to ask and inquire of defense counsel about the provenance of this leak to the New York Times and take any necessary steps to address the violations from those defense lawyers. Signed by Matthew Graves and Catherine Rakowski from the U.S. Attorney's Office. And this was never supposed to hit the public docket. Both of these, or all of this was filed under seal in all of these cases, and it's now public. Prosecutors very upset that their FBI informant was revealed. And then when they tried to cover it up by saying, Judge, we're upset about this, go tell them to, fix this, they actually outed themselves even further and confirmed all of the evidence that Mr. McWhirter is, in fact, a confidential human source for the feds. Isn't that interesting? Very interesting. And with all of those informants embedded in all of these different insurrectionary, seditious update groups, no real answers on why the FBI couldn't stop this from happening at all. But that, my friends, is it on the update from the FBI informant embedded with the Oath Keepers. And we will, of course, continue to follow.